Look at what happens when the average person is left entirely alone in a quiet room. Within 3 minutes, a quiet panic sets in. They reach for their phone. They open social media. They text people they do not even like. They turn on the television just to have background noise. They are fleeing from their own mind. Society has convinced you that being alone is a symptom of failure. You are taught that if your calendar is empty, if your phone is silent, and if you are standing by yourself, you are a victim of loneliness. This is a psychological trap designed to keep you dependent. Loneliness is a state of weakness. It is the desperate, agonizing craving for external validation. Solitude is the exact opposite. Solitude is a state of absolute control. The man who fears being alone will tolerate unimaginable disrespect just to keep a crowd around him. The man who has weaponized his solitude is mathematically impossible to manipulate. In the bitter cold of 1643, a man walked into a dark, freezing cave on Mount Kinbo in Japan. He had no army. He had no advisors. He had no friends with him. He sat down in the absolute, crushing silence of the Reigen cave, surrounded only by stone and shadows. If a modern psychologist looked at him, they would diagnose him with severe social isolation. They would say he was suffering. But Miyamoto Musashi was not suffering. He was constructing a masterpiece. In that total isolation, stripped of all societal noise, he wrote the Book of 5 Rings, the greatest treatise on martial strategy ever conceived. Musashi understood a brutal truth that the masses will never comprehend. When you strip away the voices of other people, you are finally introduced to yourself. The cave was not an exile. It was an armory. He did not need the validation of a crowd, because his own mind provided all the lethal company he required. The average human mind is incredibly fragile because it relies on an external life support system. You outsource your self-esteem to your friends. You outsource your comfort to your romantic partner. You outsource your identity to your co-workers. When you are surrounded by people, you are wearing a mask. You are constantly adjusting your behavior, your words, and your thoughts to ensure you are accepted by the pack. This is exhausting, and worse, it makes you a hostage. Manipulators and toxic individuals study this dependency. They know that your greatest, unspoken fear is the threat of isolation. The moment a manipulator realizes that you are terrified of losing them, they own you. They will slowly begin to cross your boundaries. They will disrespect you. They will drain your resources, and you will let them do it. You will negotiate with terrorists simply because the alternative, sitting alone in your room on a Friday night, feels like a death sentence. But the strategist operates on a completely different psychological plane, like the stoic archetype of Tommy Shelby staring into the fire. The strategist realizes, I am not alone when I am alone. When the strategist is isolated, his mind is not an empty room. It is a war council. It is filled with blueprints, calculations, memories, and future conquests. The silence is not a void. It is the canvas upon which he paints his reality. Look at the wreckage of a man who stayed in a deeply toxic relationship for 5 years. If you ask him why he stayed while he was being systematically destroyed, he will give you a list of romantic excuses. He will say he loved her. He will say he wanted to fix her. He will say he believed things would get better. He is lying to himself. He did not stay out of love. He stayed out of terror. He stayed because the thought of packing his bags, walking into a silent, empty apartment, and facing the echoes of his own mind was more terrifying than her daily disrespect. He traded his dignity for a warm body in the room. He allowed his empire to burn down because he was afraid of the dark. Now, reverse the psychology. Imagine a man who has mastered his solitude. He is in a negotiation, whether it is a business deal or a personal relationship. The other party attempts a power play. They disrespect his time. They issue a subtle threat. If you do not agree to my terms, I will leave. The manipulator expects panic. They expect him to cave. Instead, the man looks at them with dead, calm eyes. He is not afraid of them leaving, because he is perfectly content existing in his own company. He does not need their presence to survive. He drops the contract. He opens the door. The manipulator's leverage instantly evaporates into thin air. You cannot threaten to isolate a man who has already built a fortress in the wilderness. Think of your mind as a massive, high-security vault. Weak individuals treat their vault like a public tavern. They leave the heavy steel doors wide open. They let anyone walk in. Cheap friends, toxic partners, endless social media notifications just so the vault does not feel empty. But because the doors are open, the visitors track in mud. They steal the gold. They vandalize the walls. The master strategist treats the vault like a sanctuary. The steel doors are locked. The walls are thick. It is quiet inside. It is pristine. When the strategist locks himself inside, he is not trapped. He is protected. He is counting his gold. He is sharpening his blades. If someone outside threatens to walk away from the vault, the strategist simply smiles. Go, he thinks. You were never the owner anyway. You do not need a list of behavioral rules to master this. You only need to execute one internal shift. The protocol of deliberate exile. You must stop viewing time alone as a punishment inflicted upon you by the world, and start viewing it as a tactical retreat that you command. The next time a social plan cancels, the next time you find yourself entirely alone in your home, do not reach for your phone. Do not turn on the background noise. Sit in the silence. Let the panic rise, and then watch it die. You must prove to your own nervous system that you are the most interesting, dangerous, and capable entity in the room. When you learn to sit comfortably in the dark with your own thoughts, you strip the world of its greatest weapon against you. No one can ever use the threat of abandonment to control you again, because you have already survived the absolute worst-case scenario, being left alone, and you realized it wasn't a prison. It was a throne. When you undergo this transformation, your aura changes. People will sense that you are no longer desperate for their approval. You no longer laugh at jokes that are not funny just to fit in. You no longer text back immediately out of a desperate need to maintain contact. You become an anomaly. You become deeply intimidating. They will call you cold. They will call you detached. Let them. The sheep always resent the wolf who does not need the flock to survive. Most people who watch this will close the video and immediately open a messaging app, desperately seeking someone to talk to, running back to the noise. They will remain hostages to their own loneliness. If you refuse to be a hostage, if you are ready to lock the vault and turn your solitude into a weapon, subscribe to this channel. Join the Forge. Master the game. The crowd provides an illusion of safety, but it demands your identity as payment. The quiet room demands nothing and gives you everything. You are never truly isolated when your mind is a fortress.